Okay, welcome to the Live from the Sword Coast podcast. For those listening at home, my name is Kevin Madison, and I am your friendly dungeon master for the evening. With me so far is Jeff Ivy, one of our regular players. Jeff, I'll let you say howdy.
Hello, everyone.
And this evening, we are... sorry, so I was just getting a text. This evening, we are playing or continuing our series of trying different games to sort of see what fits and what feels, what the our gaming group's thoughts are on the different types or different games. This evening, we are playing, the setting will be the Dungeons & Dragons setting of Eberron. Eberron, I'll talk about that in a moment. Right now, I'm going to focus on the rules, which are GURPS, the generic universal role-playing system published by Steve Jackson Games. Now, Jeff is going to be playing one of the four characters that we'll be playing tonight. Our other players, are trickling in. Now, Jeff, did you find, or did you receive that email?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, cool. So the character you're going to play is Saramar. He's the human wizard. He's sort of long, gray-haired looking dude.
Oh, there's a whole bunch of characters.
Yeah, there's a slew. These are actually pre-existing characters that we played a 4th edition Dungeons and Dragons game using these characters with Steve and Drew and another friend who is real life has gotten in the way of him gaming now. So actually, Adolfo, who I think you met in the Green Lantern game, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, he played with us a little bit at the beginning of our Iron Kingdoms campaign.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Okay. So, do you have Saramar there?
Yeah.
Okay. So, a couple of things is like, first off, GURPS has a much more simplified sort of attribute matrix. So you can see there's, let's see here, going from the left to the right on that chart. And for anyone listening at home, if you go to the Dungeon Musings website, all these characters were just posted there as well. So that is the Dungeon Musings website. So Saramar, average attributes in GURPS are a 10. So ST is your strength, DX is your dexterity, IQ is your intelligence, and HT is your health. Now, the other attributes that are related to that are HP is your hit points, will is your will, it's your willpower, Per is your perception, FP are your fatigue points. Other things like, okay, so basic lift just tells you how much you can lift. Damage, everything in GURPS uses D6s. Damage, task resolution, everything. So what's listed there is 1D minus 2. What those are is your thrust and your swing. Your thrust and your swing are what's used to calculate damage with weapons. So GURPS is extremely literal in modeling damage from different types of weapons. Like, one of the really nice things about, or sort of lovely things about GURPS is that it is much easier to think of just how things function in the real world and you describe them. Because there's not the level of abstraction between reality and rules is very, very, very thin. So when I mentioned before we went live here that combat rounds in GURPS are 1 second. So I find it's really easy to figure out what you can do in 1 second just by like, 1 Mississippi. Okay, I can't climb a whole ladder in that time, but I can start going up there. Or I can maybe draw my weapon, but I can't attack with it, or I can ready one, or I can make one attack that's a good, targeted attack, or I can swing wildly twice and try and hit someone, which means that I'll be taking a penalty to my attack because that's pretty fucking random, right? So your basic speed is sort of like your reaction. That's what's used as initiative in GURPS. You don't roll for initiative, you just have a set initiative. Your basic speed, and then if there's a tie, you go to your dexterity, and then you go to other modifiers to determine. Your basic move is how fast is what's used to determine all your movement rates without without any encumbrance. And because you're a wizard, you're really not toting around an awful lot. So your ground move is 5, which is 5 yards, and your water move is a 1 yard. Now, offense, which is listed under there, that lists your different kind of modes of attack. Quarterstaff, explosive fireball, which creates an area of effect. Fireball hits 1 target, and lightning, you shoot 1 guy. Each of these has listed an attack and a number. That is the number you need to roll lower than in order to hit. I've done the math for you for your skills. The parry in GURPS, like I said, because it's 1 second, attack and defense is modeled on a round-around basis. Your parry is the number you need to roll in order to block an attack against you. So if someone, let's say, attacks you with their sword and they hit, you always, depending on what action you chose last round, you should have at least 1 defense available to you. So it can be a parry, a dodge, or a block. A block is a shield, getting it in the way, getting some big thing in the way. Parry is redirecting the force of the blow. Dodging is just getting the fuck out of the way. Your defenses are listed under defense there. So you've got dodge of 8 and a parry of 11. Reach tells you how far away you can attack, 1 yard away, 2 yards away. And there is also a range of C, which is close combat. Someone's right on top of you. One of the neat things about GURPS is that, likewise, it models the fact that, like, if someone is coming in and is wrestling with you, a quarterstaff's really going to do you almost nothing. Like, you're not going to be able to, do anything useful with it. So the range is 1 and 2. However, a dagger, which has a range of close of C or 1, or say a large knife, something like that, or even just punching or kicking someone, that stuff you can do.
Right.
Damage is listed there, swing, and then it says 1d6 plus 1 CR. CR is crushing. Crushing, cutting, impaling are the major sort of forms of damage. And GURPS, like a lot of other stuff, models damage against flesh for those things. So for instance, crushing damage doesn't get any multiplier. Whatever crushing damage you do, you do that damage. And a lot of crushing things are swing. You swing them in and whack and trying to, get through the arm or do as much blunt trauma as you can. So they often do more damage. Your swing is always more powerful than your thrust. Cutting is, hacking into stuff. That does whatever damage gets through armor does 1.5 more damage. So you multiply by 1.5. Things like swords, scythes, knives, anything that's got a cutting edge to it, that's what does cutting damage. Claws on monsters. And then there's impaling. Impaling damage is like arrows or spears or swords that are being thrust in, like rapiers and stuff. Thrusting weapons generally don't do as much raw damage as what the swinging weapons do. But the impaling damage, whatever gets through armor, does 2 times damage. They're incredibly effective against it. So as long as you can get them through, like a rapier against a metal breastplate, not super helpful. That same rapier stabbed into the armpit where there's no armor, or into the arm where there's no armor, is going to do a shit ton of damage.
Right.
You've got the, under your spells, there's a range listed. Range, those are full damage, half damage out of range. So you can see, like, your explosive fireball has a range of 25. What that means is up to 25 yards away, whatever is hit takes full damage. Past 25, up to 50 takes half damage. Anything beyond that takes no damage. It's out of range.
Okay.
And then let's see here. I'm going to go to your spells in a moment here, but let me see. Okay, your lightning. Actually, all of your spells have what's called an ACC listed there, AC. What that is the accuracy. One of the actions you can do is you can spend a round, you can spend a turn aiming. And what aiming allows you to do is you add the accuracy to your skill for the next roll. It's you kind of taking. In addition to that, you can aim for up to 2 more rounds and get +1 each time. So it's you kind of like, all right, and getting it off.
Right.
So let's see here. What else? Okay, social background. GURPS where you're from, what language you speak, and stuff like that is an important thing in GURPS. Mainly because you can suffer for certain social skills. You can suffer, if the DM chooses, cultural penalties. So let's say you grew up in a human society, right? And your character is a very chatty, whatever, but he doesn't know shit about, say, elves or dwarves or whatnot. Well, trying to use those skills in an alien, or the orcs, let's say, in that kind of environment, you've got a penalty to that, unless you've got some kind of advantage that mollifies that, or that sort of mitigates that.
Right.
So let's see here. Then gear. So your languages, obviously, Common, Draconic, and Elven are the languages you speak. Your gear is a quarterstaff, a power stone. Now, all your spells are fueled by fatigue. You spend fatigue points to get them going. Your power stone is kind of like a battery of ready-to-use fatigue points, and you can recharge them. You can recharge the power stone at 1 per hour off time using your own fatigue points. Fatigue points are regenerated normally at 1 per 10 minutes, but because of your spell selection, you regenerate them 1 per 5 minutes of rest. So if you cast a whole shit ton of spells, if you get down to less than a third of your fatigue points, you start to suffer. You get your movement and your dexterity based skills are halved, because you're just kind of like, you're winded.
Right.
But like, let's say you cast a ton of spells, you've gone down by 10, you're at 3 fatigue points left, you've exhausted your power stone. You take an hour to rest and relax, you'll regain 4 fatigue points. By 5 minutes you'll gain 12 points. So you'll be back to an hour is all you need to really get yourself back and ready to rock again.
Okay.
Your advantages, magery is that's sort of like being a mage. It allows you to be able to cast spells. And the ranks, what they do is they are added. All skills are based off of for the most part, off of either your IQ, your intelligence, or your dexterity. Magic spells are skills, just like just like other kinds of intelligence skills. And what magery allows you to do is, when you're calculating your rate, like how high you are, what your skill is, you get to add your magery to your intelligence. So even though you got an IQ of 14, which is pretty good, you're quite the smart guy, or educated guy, or a combination of both. Your magery means it's a 17 is the starting point for calculating. When you spend character points to learn skills or learn spells, you get to add that to it. In addition, magery allows you to do some general kind of sensing crap, like you can sense magic, you can sense whether there are objects that are magic. So in addition to opening the door to spell casting and helping you as you gain more levels, helping you become a better spellcaster, it also allows you to do some of those typical magical stuff. Your disadvantages are Code of Honor Soldier. These are things like, think of what an honorable soldier would do. Like not killing someone who's surrendered. Honoring truces. Assisting your comrades in arms, never leaving a man behind. Those are the kind of things that Saramar believes. What is going on? Are you hearing that sound too?
Yep.
What is that?
Brent was phoning you? Instead of joining the call, he tried to call you.
God damn it.
Or he tried to call me?
Maybe that's... I don't understand why we have this problem. We've been doing this for like 4 months now. I just sent him another invite. Maybe he'll sort that out. Okay, so let's see here. So that's your Code of Honor. You were curious. You got a number there, 12 or less. Basically what that's your self-control roll. A lot of disadvantages in GURPS are governed by self-control. You're beyond like, hey, I want to see what's in that cave. Hey, I want to explore beyond the horizon. You're also, hey, Brent. Brent, can you hear us?
I've got no audio.
You need to sort that out then.
Oh, here it goes.
Okay, can you hear us now?
Yeah, I guess there was just a little hiccup trying to get in.
No problem. Just a reminder, Brent. So don't call us. Just respond to the invite that I send.
Yeah, I know. It didn't work out. There. Anyway, yeah, it didn't. I tried and it was and it didn't work. So I was clicking around and then disconnected my call from you.
Okay. Okay. So Brent. So as you may gather from the last email I sent you, this evening we're playing GURPS Eberron. So I'm going to ask you to open up. I'm just going through Jeff's character right now. I'm going to ask you to open up the character sheet that's in there. And the character you'll be playing tonight, Brent, you have not played him before, but you have played his namesake. You're playing a character named Rurik.
Uh-huh.
Now, okay, so Jeff, what curious means is basically, it's like I said, it's beyond just like, oh, what's over there, what's, like the typical thing that drives adventurers. You are like, I wonder what that red button does, or I wonder whatever, like if there's something that piques your curiosity, if you choose or you try to not follow that, you have to make a self-control roll. So you roll 12 or less, you're able to resist it. What else? Enemy, Order of the Emerald Claw. Now, in the setting that we're playing in, the Order of the Emerald Claw is from another nation. They're sort of a secret society that services these hideous necromancers. Think of like a sort of fantasy version of the KGB in the 60s or 50s and 60s. That's sort of what the Order of the Emerald Claw is. And like I was saying before we went live, because you've got an enemy, what we'll do is we'll roll at the start of the session. If you roll 9 or less, that means the Order of the Emerald Claw will play a role in tonight's session. You've got a sense of duty to the survivors of the morning, and I'll tell you what the morning is when we get to the sort of setting stuff. You're stubborn. You what do you call it? You sort of think you know what's best.
Right.
If it may require some kind of social skill roll to convince you to do otherwise. Once you've got a thing. Not surprisingly, Theramar kind of is the leader of the Sons of Seer. And finally, you're a workaholic. And what that means is, for people who first meet you, it's a sort of a two-way sort of disadvantage. People who first meet you think, wow, what a hard-working dude, and it benefits your reaction. So, like I said before, the social kind of effect, the damage roll or whatever you make for social stuff, at first someone meeting you is like, oh, that's really good. But the more they get to know you, you're like, oh, he just works all the time. So it eventually becomes a negative.
Okay.
Okay? Your skills they should be fairly straightforward. It's just like I said with everything else, 3d6, you want to roll that number or lower. Alchemy is, alchemy. Area knowledge is sort of a catch-all of knowing stuff about a specific kind of region. Yours is the 5 nations, which is sort of the 5 major countries that, or 5 major countries that were involved in this like century-long war that just recently came to an end. Hey, Dave.
Oh, hey. Can you see me?
And for Dave's, Dave will be playing a character named Kettle. Dave, I'm not sure if you can open it up on Brent's phone or maybe on your phone, so you guys have 2.
Yeah, I'm gonna print it out.
Oh, excellent. Okay, so you know what? You only need to print out Rurik and Kettle. Okay, and let's see here. So diplomacy is trying to be diplomatic. It's trying to be make people like you, I guess. History is history. Innate attack. That's what you use to hit with your spells. You make an attack, and it's a skill that governs that. You've got navigation. Obviously, should make sense. Occultism is knowing about sort of the weird, obscure secrets in the world. Research is research. If you're trying to look through libraries or look through I don't know, piles of scrolls or something like that. Savoir-faire is sort of like etiquette in 5 Rings, where like it's your ability to blend in. You can sort of work the social circles in both high society and in magical society. You know how both those worlds sort of work. Speed reading is obviously speed reading. Staff is your attack skill. Survival, you got mountains and plains, so that's just like survival in every other game. Thaumatology is knowledge of spellcraft. it's used to identify different, obscure spells or understand what's been cast or like identify a curse or something like that. Occultism is sort of like the world of the unknown and the supernatural. Thaumatology is knowing about the actual spells and shit like that.
Okay.
And then finally, writing. Now, you may ask yourself, well, why the fuck do I have a writing skill? Because I'm never going to use that. That's a very good question. One of the things you have in GURPS is, as sort of a backdrop to it, just like in our Iron Kingdoms campaign, you have a job. And what you do is once a month, you make a skill roll, and that determines how much money you make, really, from your job. Jobs have specific requirements, and then if you make critical failures on your job roll, you can lose your job if it's a non-threatening one, or you could get really fucked up and hurt if it's a more dangerous occupation like soldier or mercenary. Right. Your job, you're a correspondent for a newspaper based out of a gnomish nation called Zilargo. So you, you are sort of a traveling correspondent for this group or for this place, and that's where your writing comes in. Your okay.
No,
your skill, your spells, what the energy. Okay, so there's a bunch of categories on the top there. Spell name should make sense. Your skill is what you're rolling to try and cast that spell. When you want to cast a spell, you make a skill roll. Energy tells you how much fatigue it costs to cast that spell. Time to cast tells you how long it takes to cast the spell. That's from beginning to, that's just the actual spell itself. For attack spells, you cast it, and then you have to spend another action to use it. So, but remember, 1 second thing. So it's 1 second to cast, and then you can cast it. Or you can hold on to it. So let's say you know you're going to somewhere dangerous. You could cast a fireball and keep it in your hand. And one of the cool things is you can spend a number of rounds concentrating on that equal to your magery. So for you can spend 3 rounds dumping more juice into, say, like a lightning bolt or a fireball, and then step in and really unleash hell.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So the duration tells you how long it lasts, and then the effect, it'll describe what the effect is. I'm just going to very briefly go through what the spells, quickly what they do. And then I'll leave you to look into greater detail, or if questions come up, we can deal with those as we go. So, Analyze Magic identifies, if you're not going to make a thaumatology roll, you can just cast the spell, it'll tell you what the spell is. Apportation. Apportation is a weird name for Mage Hand. It's moving shit around.
Yeah, okay.
Counterspell, exactly like it sounds. It's someone tries to cast a spell, you cast that, and you stop it from happening. Create air creates air, pockets of air that last for a certain length of time. Create fire, same thing. Deflect energy. If someone casts say a fireball at you, or a lightning ball, or like a not a dirt one wouldn't be it, like any kind of energy missile, this spell allows you to basically parry it. You cast that spell, it deflects it away. Deflect missile, same thing for actual missiles. Arrows, crossbow bolts. If this was a high-tech setting, guns. You cast deflect missile, your magic sends it careening away. Destroy air. Like I said, it just gets rid of air. Detect magic, should make sense. Dispel magic is for ongoing effects. Explosive fireball. You charge up something, you cast it, and then it explodes out for a range or a radius that is determined by how much juice you put into it. The standard radius is 1 yard, and then you can juice it up by more. Is that right? No, that's not right. Oh yeah, it's right. It's the way explosions work in this is that basically there's diminished effects. So the thing has a center of effect, and then each yard they're away from you, each yard they get away from that, you divide it by 3. So if you hit one guy, another guy is 3 yards away, he divides the damage by 9.
Okay.
Okay? So it's kind of like has a target and explodes out from there. Extinguish fire should make sense. Fire cloud creates an area of effect that is full of, it's a 1 yard radius spell, and then you can juice it up for more larger radius, where it just fills it with fire, with flame. Fireball is a single target fire spell. Haste, it boosts the target's move and dodge, so it makes them move faster and get out of the way of stuff faster. Identify spell, again, if you want to shortcut what do you call it, thaumaturgy, and you just want to know what spell is being cast or has been cast, that's what that does. Ignite fire, you just flick your fingers and create a fire. You'll see, actually, for this one as well, you'll see that some of your spells cost 0. And the reason is because you know the spell at a level where it reduces the cost by 1. The better you know a spell, the cheaper it gets, and the faster you can cast it. So you become like a more proficient caster. So, for instance, you can light a cigarette, a candle, a whatever, something small with no fatigue.
Right.
Lend energy allows you to transfer fatigue points to someone else. Light creates a light spell. Lightning is a lightning bolt, single target. Purify air removes impurities, so like poison or smoke or things like that. It gets rid of that. Rain of fire, I think you can imagine what that does. Recover energy. This is just that one that I said, because you have a spell that allows you to recover fatigue points faster, that's this one.
Right.
Shape air allows you to create like swirling air, and you can kind of knock people down with it. Shape fire, same thing. Shield creates a long-lasting sort of defensive thing for you, and there's a difference in GURPS between your defensive bonus and your damage reduction. Armor just protects you. It doesn't. Emmy, hey, knock that off. Maybe he's trying to eat my yoga mat. The armor reduces the amount of damage you take. Defensive bonus reduces the chance of being hit, or rather, it boosts your defenses, your dodge, your parry, your block. Right. Okay. Okay. So this one creates a DB bonus. Smoke fills an area with smoke. Walk on air. You can guess what that does. That clearly turns you into a fish. No, it makes you walk on air. And then wall of wind creates this swirling, gusting, area or wall of wind in front of you. So that's him. I'm going to go through combat once we actually get to combat, but that's sort of. Do you have any questions about what's on there right now, or you got an idea? I don't think so. Okay. So, Brent and Dave, do you guys have your character sheets there?
I'm looking at mine, Kev. Brent is currently unavailable.
Okay. So, Dave, I'll go through what Kettle can do. As I said to Brent earlier, tonight we're playing a game called GURPS, the Generic Universal Role-Playing System. This is sort of a basically, imagine if you strip the rules out of any kind of game. This allows you to custom build sort of a game and then play. The setting for this is a Dungeons and Dragons setting called Eberron. Now, Eberron, Brent already knows about Eberron, so maybe I'll take a quick moment here and just give you the rundown on Eberron. Eberron it has all the aspects of, or all the elements of a Dungeons and Dragons setting, but it's got a little twist to it. So if you took Dungeons and Dragons and put it in a pot, and then you added some Raiders of the Lost Ark to it, and you added some Third Man, like the film noir, to it, and some Dashiell Hammett, and then you brought it to a nice pulpy simmering boil, and put a little bit of post-World War I ennui into the mix, then you'd have Eberron. Okay. Eberron is a setting where 5 nations were at war for a century, and that at the end of the century, only like 3 or 4 years ago, the war finally came to an end when one of the 5 nations, the 5 nations are Ondare, Breland, Carnath, Thrain, and Seir. And you guys are all from Seir. But unfortunately, the reason it ended is because one day, this massive magical storm appeared to fill the entire country of Seir. And you guys were just outside the border, engaged with Carnathi troops at that time. What has now become known as the Morning wiped out everyone and everything. An entire nation wiped clean from the face of Eberron. Now, as a result of that, it led to everyone sort of realizing what had happened. No one knows what happened during the morning. No one knows what caused it. No one knows who did something in it, so it's ended it. But what they're in, since it's only a short time that's passed, the 4 remaining nations, they still call it the 5 nations because they really can't come to leave those behind. Those 4 nations made peace, and they also had to make peace with the series of successor kingdoms that in the course of the 100-Year War managed to break off and found their own nations, like, for instance, the Gnomish kingdom of Zilargo, and the Hobgoblin nation of Dargoon, and the monstrous kingdom of Drome, and the sort of frontier nation of the Eldine Reaches. Where we are, another element to this world is that magic is ubiquitous. And it's also a little further ahead in sort of the technological scale. There are trains in Eberron. There are flying ships in Eberron. There is instant communication through magical means in Eberron. Eberron is much closer to sort of a middle war sort of period. There aren't guns or anything, but almost everything else that would characterize that sort of period, the 20s and 30s, the pulp settings, that's present in Eberron. One of the key signature pieces of that is a race known as the Warforged. Now that's what you are, Dave. You're playing a Warforged ranger named Kettle, and the Warforged were created by there's a bunch of powerful sort of magical houses called the dragon-marked houses that each have these specific marks that that represent some kind of like magical blessing in a specific type of area. So, for instance, this one family called House Kenneth has the mark of the Artificer, and during the last war, they created the Warforged. They used these massive things called Soul Forges to create this race that were marched off the line and sent off to war. Thing is, whether they knew or they had intended or not, these things had souls and dreams and personalities and so forth. So since the war, with the war ending, and the Warforged, I believe, were only around for about 70 years. Like they weren't there for the most of the war. No, not 70 years. It's got to be less than that. The Warforged, with the war ending so suddenly, found themselves without purpose. So, for instance, you were actually a Warforged who was fighting in the army of Seer, and then when the war ended, you found yourself without any kind of purpose whatsoever. And what you did find solace in is your comrades in arms. All of you guys served together in a specific unit together during the last war. But with Seer disappearing, essentially, or being eliminated, you guys were suddenly comrades in arms without a home to go to. Soldiers without a nation. So you've, not surprisingly, like a lot of people following the war, struggled to try and find a purpose in life, and what purpose you found is to work as a mercenary group known as the Sons of Seer. Now, that's sort of the background for Eberron. The GURPS is a very different. We've been trying out a bunch of different systems. GURPS is a much more a much closer way of modeling reality than what a lot of other games are. That doesn't mean that it's not fun and exciting and whatever. It's just that if you think of how things work in the real world, that's pretty much how they work in the mechanics of GURPS. So, for instance, let's see here. If I'm trying to think. Well, let me go through some of what's on your character sheet, and I'll think of a better explanation for it, or they'll probably come out as we go. So, first off, your attributes, or your key attributes, are simplified. Oh, I see a hand there. Brent, are you there?
Yeah, more or less.
Oh, more or less. Okay. Well, I was just explaining the background. You don't need the explanation for what Eberron is. But what, Brent, your character's name is Rurik, of course. But you are also your surname, which you don't use very often because you've sort of distanced yourself from it. You are Rurik Lirindar. You were born with the Mark of the Storm, and you were born in hey, what are you doing? Of House Lirindar.
Okay.
You, however, so during the last war, you were from Sear, and when put in the position by your house elders of, look, you choose one or the other, you chose Sear. You chose your home rather than your family. And as a result of that, you've sort of been ostracized by House Lyrindar. In my version of Eberron, Lyrindar controls all airships. It's because you need the sort of Mark of the Storm to make them function properly. All of them are controlled by House Lyrindar, except one. That's the one that you inherited from your grandfather. And it has become, since the ending of the last war, you and your colleagues, you were sort of a sergeant in the special unit that you guys were in. You have eventually, after like 3 or 4 years of wandering, you found out about this ship, this big. It's sort of a prototype, a big sort of unwieldy. It's not fast. Well, I mean, it's fast, but it's not like sleek and streamlined. It's a quirky, clunky prototype that was never really, while they were still perfecting the airships. You've inherited this thing, and you're the only independent airship in all of Eberron, all of Corvair. Not surprisingly, that's given your sort of like turning your back on the house. That it sits in the craw of House Lyrindar. Looking at your character sheets, you can see you've got on the left there your strength. ST is your strength. Attributes in GURPS have an average. An average human has a 10 in everything. So your strength is a 10. Sorry, your strength is ST. Your DX is your dexterity. Your IQ is your intelligence, and your HT is your health. So that's sort of what is the core of how what determines everything else your character does. Your HP are your hit points. Your will is your willpower. Your per is your perception. Your FP are your fatigue points. The basic lift is in pounds. You'll see under damage there are 2 numbers listed there. The first one is the thrust, and the second is swing. GURPS models weapons pretty accurately for how they actually function in the real world. The way that guys are you leaning back, or is the camera just focused in a weird way? I can see a blank wall there, but that's really it.
Hang on. We just had the character sheet up, and so we're on each side of the camera as opposed.
Oh, okay, I see. So you guys aren't going to sit in each other's laps.
We don't want to give each other hand jobs anymore.
I'm eating a really messy burrito, but we'll cuddle after.
Okay. So Dave, lucky you. Sounds like oof, you hit the jackpot there. Sitting next to a bean-filled Brent all night. Lucky guy. Okay, so damage, like I said, GURPS models things in terms of in sort of a realistic way. Your first one is your thrust. Second one is swing, and your damage for your melee weapons is going to come from those. Your basic speed is how fast you react. You don't roll initiative in GURPS. You go in order of your speed. And if you're tied there, you go to your dex, and if you're tied there, you go to other factors, or you act simultaneously. Your basic move is your sort of starting point for how fast you are, how fast you move around. That's modified by your encumbrance, and you can see that Kettle, you're really not encumbered at all, so you're able to move around at a 6. That's 6 yards per round. And Brent, you're a little encumbered because of your armor and your weapons, so your ground move is a 3. Now, I'll just mention now that in combat in GURPS is in 1-second increments. So your round lasts 1 Mississippi. So when you're thinking of when we get to a combat, when you're thinking of what you want to do, try to just think of okay, 1 Mississippi. Can I lift a ladder or climb a ladder in that time? No. Can I draw a weapon and attack? Well, probably, but I'll probably take a penalty to it. Can I move and attack? I can probably do that, but I'm also going to be shitty at trying to do that if I don't actually try and line up the shot. So that's something just to bear in mind. We'll talk about what you specifically can do when we get to combat. Okay. Oh, can you guys hear me still, or?
Yeah.
Okay. Remember, I can see you when you're talking to each other instead of listening. I can see that.
I was just discussing my printer issues. We now have character sheets.
Oh, terrific. Okay.
3 printers, three sets of errors, but I was able to solve one on the third.
Awesome. Okay, so you guys will see that you have offense listed there. That's your sort of your attacks that are available. They are listed in terms of attack, parry. Some of them, the melee weapons have a reach listed there, and then the damage, and some of them have multiple damage. So both you guys have thrusting broadswords. Your attack is the number you need to roll with 3d6 or less to hit. Your parry is what you need to roll when you're trying to defend. In GURPS, every round, depending on what you choose to do with your round, you should have at least one defense that you have available to you. So, and those defenses are dodge, parry, block. Dodge, get the fuck out of the way. Parry, use your weapon to redirect the attack. Block, get something in the way of it. So like a shield. That's, the number you need to roll or less to block. GURPS model stuff on a stroke by stroke. This is not abstracted combat. Each round, each sort of sword stroke and parry and riposte is modeled in game. Reach tells you how far away you are. GURPS also models the fact that, like, certain weapons can only be effective at certain ranges. A spear is great for someone who's 1 yard or 2 yards away from you. Someone comes in and they're grappling with you, that spear is useless. However, a dagger or a knife with a close combat range, a C, that thing's going to be pretty handy in that circumstance. So you'll see that your weapons have different reaches listed on them as well. The swing and thrust, you can see this is a good way to point out that GURPS also models different kinds of damage. So the 3 main kinds you'll see tonight are crushing, cutting, and impaling. Crushing damage is just whatever gets through armor that's applied to damage, because that's flesh is affected by that on a 1-for-1 basis. Cutting damage that gets through armor is multiplied by 1.5. And impaling damage, things from like spears or rapiers or arrows or crossbow bolts, that's multiplied by 2. So you can see where things like, if you're fighting a guy who's wearing a breastplate and you've got a rapier, your rapier is probably not going to go through the breastplate, but if you go for a less armored area like the legs or the arms or the, armpit, if you get through that armor, it's going to do a lot of damage. It's going to really fuck someone up. And one of the cool things, Dave, I'll mention about Kettle, one of his advantages is because he's a Warforged, that doesn't apply to you. Damage is damage is damage. You're not made of fleshy blood and whatever else. So whatever the thing is, arrows, what have you, they do the same amount of damage. Whatever gets through your armor is what damage you take. So that's one little advantage you've got over the flesh and blood types in our group tonight. So you can see where there is, if you swing, you're going to do more damage as a starting point. But from some of your weapons, you'll find where, depending on who you're fighting, either the swing may be more advantageous than the thrust, or the thrust may be better than the swinging. Or if you're going to make a called shot, say, you're going to try and get through all of your armor, an impaling attack is probably a better option than a cutting attack, at least against living things. You'll also see in your ranged weapons, your regular bow and your composite bow, you have a stat called ACC, ACC. That is your accuracy. What you can do is you can take a second, take one of your rounds to aim. If you do, you get to add that to your skill before you make the roll. And then you can aim for up to 2 more rounds as well to gain another +1 and another +1. You don't have to do that. If you've got a weapon that's loaded and whatnot, you can fire in one round. But if you take that second, you get to add that accuracy to it. Dave, you'll see that yours has Heroic Archer. I'll talk about that in a moment. You got a special ability that lets you cheat. The other thing, Brian, you've got is Fog Cloud. That is a, that allows you to create, because of your Mark of the Storm, you create a fog cloud up to 100 yards away. Then your defense tells you what your armor is. Dave, I didn't include the leather armor that you're wearing, so actually if you want to add another DR2 on top of that, Your body gives you a DR2, and then your leather armor gives you DR2 as well, so you get a DR4. What DR is damage reduction. You subtract that from the amount of damage you take. And then your other options there are dodge, parry, and whatever. Brent, you got lots more options. You got dodge, parry, and block because you use a medium shield. Brent, you can see you're different. You got different D. Oh no, your DR is the same in all your different areas, but you're armored all over. Social background is GURPS models where you're from, what you speak, and stuff like your sort of, your background. Where this comes into play is if you are in another culture. If you like, say you were raised amongst humans and you're awesome with social skills, you're chatty and whatever, and then you find yourself in a tribe of orcs. You're not going to have the same social cue. You're not going to, unless you've got some special ability, your awesome chattiness is going to suffer a penalty because you don't understand the culture. That's what that models. Your gear should be straightforward. It's pretty straightforward adventuring gear. Your advantages, I'm going to quickly blow through these. I've written down sort of what they do, but acute vision. So if you're making a perception check, Dave, with that involves vision, and actually this is you too, Brent, you guys get +1 to your perception. So instead of rolling 12, Dave, for Kettle's perception, you'd be rolling a 13 or less. Let's see here, Dave, heroic archer is sort of like this badass ability that allows you to be an awesome archer. You don't have to aim to add your accuracy bonus to your shots, so you're extraordinarily accurate. Your starting point for your skill is an 18 or less, and that's on 3d6. So if there were no modifiers, you just hit. Also, because your skill is so high, if you roll a 6 or lower, you also score a critical hit. Any of you guys who have a skill of 15 or higher, where it's 15 or less, like for instance, Brent, your broadsword, you get attack 15 or less. Normally any roll criticals on a 3 or a 4. Because your skill's a 15, you also score a critical on 5, Brent.
Okay.
Okay, so when you low is always good in this game. Dave, you score a critical with your bow on a 3, 4, 5, or 6. Jeff, that applies to your spells as well. So you score a critical on a 3, 4, or a 5 for anything that's a 15 or higher.
Okay.
Okay. Now, so Dave, you always get to add your accuracy, which is cool. You also, when you move and attack, normally if you move and attack in a single second, you have to apply a penalty equal to the bulk of the weapon. So Brent, in your case, you would take a -7. If you try to run and shoot your bow in the same round, in the same second, you take a -7 to your attack roll. Dave, you don't. You can move and attack without taking that penalty.
Is that only with a bow, Kev?
Only with a bow.
And is there any point at which heroic archer does not apply?
Heroic archer. Well, there's one other thing you can do. Okay, again, GURPS is 1 Mississippi. That's what your round is. Normally, a longbow takes you 2 rounds to reload. Draw an arrow. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 fire. You can make 2 rolls of against your bow skill to fire 2 shots in 1 round. Paff, paff, because you're just that fucking good. Now you got to make a roll to do that, but you have the option if you really need to unload in that single second and bring the pain, you can do that. Another cool thing is that if you need to, you can spend 3 rounds aiming. So you can get your starting skill up to a 21 before range penalties are applied. So you can be extraordinarily accurate. Other things here, you are immune to metabolic hazard. You can't be poisoned, you can't catch diseases. Injury tolerance, you don't bleed. So bleeding effects do nothing to you. Unliving is a thing that doesn't, where like the multiplier for cutting and impaling doesn't apply to you. You're an outdoorsman. That's already been factored into your skills. Steve-O!
What's up?
Hey! Just in time. We're going through. You've played GURPS before, so I'll just have to do a reminder for you. But If you open up the character sheet I just sent you, Steve, you'll have Ruggin's character sheet in there.
Excellent.
Your signature gear is just something I needed to purchase some of your gear, and you got your Warforged body. So your punches do more damage. Your kicks do more damage because you're made of metal and wood. You don't breathe. You don't eat. You don't sleep. Plus, you have a natural damage reduction of 2. So that's all the good stuff that you get from your advantages. Your disadvantages are sort of the other parts of your personality or background that round out your character. You have a code of honor. So you, which is soldier. Brent, I've got yours listed as chivalry. It should be soldier, not chivalry. So all you guys have essentially the same kind of code of honor, which is like never leave a man behind, honor a truce, don't kill surrendering soldiers, stuff like that. You guys are honorable soldiers, or were honorable soldiers. Kettle, you've also got an ability, or a disadvantage called curious, and this is not just like, hey, let's go adventuring, let's go find things. It's, what does that door button do, or like, I wonder what that lever does. Like, it's the kind of curiosity that gets you in trouble sometimes. You share that with your good friend Saramar, the wizard that Jeff is playing. You'll see there's a number next to there. That's your self-control roll. Anytime you're trying to resist one of your disadvantages, you make a self-control roll. 3d6, you roll 12 or less, you manage to resist the temptation. If you fail, what does that button do? Let's see. I've got loner listed there. That's actually wrong. That should be the opposite. It's chummy. You hate being on your own. It's been instilled in you that you should be with a group and with whatever, and you've been with people the entire time since you've been created. If you are not with a group, if you're on your own, you're miserable, and you suffer a -2 to all your skills. It just kills your mood. So when you're with people, it's awesome, and seeing you with other people gives a +1 to reactions. I'm going to quickly mention how social skills work in this. When you guys first encounter an NPC that I don't have a dictated reaction, what we'll do is we'll roll 3d6. Just like, it's kind of like social damage, and that'll tell us how that character's starting sort of reaction to you is. That is modified by blatantly obvious things, like, for instance, if you are part of a group that is, like, you're a police officer and you meet someone who likes police officers, you are a member of the aristocracy and you meet someone who that means something to, you get a bonus to that damage. So the higher you roll in that number, the better the ability. When people first meet you in that context, Dave, they get a +1. So you get a +1 to their reaction because you're great with other people. You're horrible on your own. When you're not with other people, you take -2. And that stacks with one of the other things you've got, which is social stigma. The Warforged are walking reminders of the last war. When people see you and encounter you, there's always a slightly less positive reaction, so you get -2 to it. So if you, for instance, met someone while you were on your own and as a Warforged, when we make that reaction roll, it's 3d6 -4. You've got no sense of smell or taste. One of the downsides is being a kind of a magical robot is you can't smell or taste anything. You can't smell the gas leak. You can't taste poison. Poison doesn't affect you anyway, but you have a sense of duty to the survivors of the morning. This isn't. It's sort of like a duty you have to oblige. You have to follow it, but this is something that comes from within you, because the remnants of Seer, the nation of Seer, are so few and far between. You feel an obligation to protect them, whatever the circumstances. And you've got low empathy. Human emotion. This is sort of that typical like, oh, I don't understand these human emotions. Because you're coming from a completely different viewpoint, you suffer a penalty to certain social skills. So anything that would involve understanding of emotions, like say sex appeal, you're not going to be a super sexy guy. You would suffer a penalty to trying to do that. Now your skills all are resolved with 3d6, and you want to roll that or lower. Area knowledge is just having a general knowledge of, if I want to see whether you know where something is, you'll roll an area knowledge roll. Your bow should make sense. Broadsword is same thing, should make sense. Your attack skill. Camouflage is hiding a stationary target in the wild. Climbing is climbing. Hiking, I think you can guess that one as well. Knife is your attack skill for knife. Mimicry, animal sounds. You can mimic animal sounds. You're not great at it, but you can try. Naturalist is sort of like your understanding and knowledge of herbs and stuff like that in the wild. Land navigation, you can figure out where you're going. That's your to avoid from getting lost. Stealth is obviously stealth. Survival woodlands functions just like survival in every other role-playing game. Swimming should make sense, and tracking should likewise make sense. So that's Kettle. Brent Rurik. Again, the skills gear should make sense.
I just want to, for Dave's character, his accuracy bonus with his bow, right, is +3, right?
That's right. Yep.
And my understanding from pole shots, if he shoots someone, there's a penalty. So like groin is -3. So if you shoot someone in the junk, they sort of cancels each other out.
That's correct. Yep. If you try to, and also range plays a factor in this too. So like we're using abstracted ranges because I think that's a cool rule. Rather than, so basically what it is short, medium, long, extreme. Close range up to 5 yards, no penalty to hit. Short range 6 to 20 yards, -3 to hit. Medium range is -7, that's 20 to 100. Long range is 100 to 500, is -11, and extreme is 500 or more, is +15, or sorry, -15. Now, this is a game that models everything from blowguns to fucking antimatter rifles. So some of those ranges won't really matter. But for instance, if Dave say wanted to try and hit someone at his maximum range. Oh, the other thing, guys, the range listed on your thing. You'll see there's one range and another one. First range is when things start doing half damage, and the second one is the maximum range. So if you hit someone up to 220 yards away, Dave, with your composite bow, full damage. From 220 to 275, they take half damage. Beyond 275, they can't be hit. So let's say you're trying to hit someone at your maximum range at 275. You'd be taking a -11 to hit. If you took 3 rounds to aim that out, you would net a +3 to the 18, you'd be at 21, -11 gives you 10 or less, which is about a 50% chance. So you still got a pretty awesome chance of hitting someone at a really extreme range. Let's see here. Brent, so your guy, acute vision, that should make sense. Born War Leader is one of these advantages that adds to a bunch of skills like Outdoorsman, and it's already added in there. Combat reflexes is an awesome advantage for warriors. It essentially is sort of a it's the thing that like you learn from being in combat. It's keeping your head and things like that. Brent, you get a +2 to fright checks, so you're what do you call it? You're not going to be startled or scared as easily by like monstrous looking things or scary things. You get +6, so the chance of you waking up or recovering from surprise is extraordinarily high. You also, it's already been baked in here for you, all your defenses are raised by 1 because of your combat reflexes. Your Dragon Mark is your ability to create that fog cloud. Your night vision reduces the darkness penalties by 3. Signature gear, as I said, that's a thing I needed to get the money to buy your gear. And social regard. When people know about your Dragon Mark, Brent, and you can tell me where it is, they get +2 to their reaction. Everything you do with your social skills, guys, if you don't like the initial reaction or you want to improve it, that's how you use your social skills. You can try and get better things out of them. Your code of honor, Brent, should make sense. Easy to read. You are an open book. You can't lie really well. You suck at gambling. You've got the opposite of a poker face. Anyone trying to, it's not fast talk, it should be fast talk. Anyone trying to fast talk you or judge what your mood is from body language, they get pretty significant bonuses to that. You have an enemy of House Lyrindar. And again, that's like in our last session in 13th Age, this is the way that you guys, if you had created these characters, this would be your way of controlling the campaign. What themes and what enemies are going to be playing a regular role in the game. The honesty You want to follow the laws. When possible, Brent, you want to follow the law. You have to make a self-control roll to try and break the law. You're selfless. If you see people who are suffering or are hurting, you want to help out. You want to do something to help those people, or you have to make a self-control roll to try and resist that temptation. And sense of duty, same thing with Kettle. You want to, you got an obligation to the survivors of the morning. And truthfulness. You have a really fucking hard time lying. Your self-control role is to either lie by omission or by commission. To let someone make a misapprehension or whatnot. You're just a truthful guy. You're just a straightforward, straight-shooting guy. Probably what got you in trouble with House Lyrindar in the first place. You're like, no, the kingdom is more important to me than what you are. This is my home. I'm going to go fight for it. Your skills should all make sense there too. Airshipman, it's because you have a airship. This is your ability to crew that. You have a crew of goblins from the bowels of Sharn who crew that ship, incidentally, Brent.
Nice.
Brawling is hand-to-hand combat. Broadsword is obviously broadsword. Carousing is exactly what it sounds like. Diplomacy is exactly what it sounds like. Fast draw allows you to get out a weapon and not suffer any penalty. So it allows you to, in that 1 second, get it out and use it. Fog Cloud should actually be first aid, Brent. Sorry, that should be listed as first aid. You got a first aid of 13. That allows you to do immediate healing. You'll see when we get to combat, damage and healing and stuff like that works very differently in GURPS. It is, but I think you'll find that it is very intuitive. Once you start seeing how it works, you're like, oh, of course. If X happens, then then this is how it's reflected in my stats. Hiking should make sense as well. It's the ability to try to make extra time on forced marches. Knife, leadership. Now, Brent, what leadership does is if you encounter something that is scary or something that's going to make a morale or a fright check, you can try and use leadership to give a bonus to everyone else to rally against it. Riding is riding. Savoir-faire is sort of like etiquette in Five Rings. It's your ability to sort of blend in that society. So with you, it's savoir-faire of both military and dragon-marked houses. You can move around in those circles. Your shield is your blocking sort of skill. Soldier is a catch-all skill where it's, for one thing, it's your profession, like I mentioned before. Yeah, it's also, Brent, your sort of, if there's a thing that you can't fit it into other skills, or at least other skills you've got, but it's something that may be related to soldier, you might be able to use that skill to snag that.
One question. On my skill for shield, it's at 14, but my defense with a block is only 13.
Yes, that's because it is half the way you calculate your defenses. Your dodge is based on your move. It's your move plus 3, and then modified by some other things. Your parry and your block is half the skill plus 3, and then modified by other things. The way you get to 13 in yours is 7 from your skill, plus 3 is 10, plus 1 from your combat reflexes, plus 2 from your medium shield.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. And that medium shield, I mentioned before the difference between defensive bonus and damage reduction. That shield DB, that applies to all your defenses. Block, parry, and dodge. Your strategy, that allows you to, that's large-scale things. Strategy is more like used in large encounters. Tactics is another one you've got there. Tactics is small scale. If you have time to prepare, Brent, you can make a tactics roll, and then you can tell me how you're going to have an advantage. I may not buy it, but I mean, if you've got an advantage, like, okay, you know what, I know we're going to be fighting someone, we're going to get Kettle positioned over here, we're going to get Ruggin up front, and we're going to get Saramar to hang back, and I'm going to go over here hidden. You may get, say maybe +1 in the first round to all your skill rolls, or you may, they may have a penalty to recovering from surprise or whatever. Depends on how you want to sort of role play. Yeah. And then finally, Streetwise is Streetwise. That's used just like his Streetwise in every other game. So that is Rurik. And then Steve-O, Rugs. Ruggin you should know quite well. So Ruggin, a couple things that are different for Ruggin you just need to be aware of. Ruggin, with that big fuck-off maul he's got, you need 3d6, Steve, to make your checks in this. Okay. When you make your roll, so if you roll a 3, 4, 5, or 6 with your maul, you score a critical because your skill's so good with it.
Wow.
Another thing, because the maul is so big and heavy, you cannot attack and parry in the same round with it. So just be aware of that. When you attack, you're going to have to spend a round getting it back up again and getting ready to hit again. If you parry, you can't attack with it just because it's just such a massive weapon. The reach is, I think you heard me mention that, the different, like 1 yard away, 2 yards away. Your swing damage, the crushing, doesn't get multiplied. It's cutting damage that gets multiplied. What else here? The accuracy, you heard me mention how that applies, right? For your throwing axes. You can take a round to, remember that in GURPS, 1 second round. You take your second to aim, and then you get to add your accuracy to that.
Okay.
So his special abilities, let's see here. Combat reflexes, that I've mentioned before. Fit, you get a +1 to health rolls and to recover fatigue point, and you recover fatigue points at twice the rate that you normally do.
Nice.
Okay. High pain threshold. Remember when you're injured, here's the thing that happens when you're injured in GURPS, guys. If you take damage, you take -1 to all skill checks except for defenses next round up to a maximum of 4. So if you take 3 points of damage, all your attacks, all your other skills are -3 next round. Except for Ruggin, because Ruggin's got high pain threshold, so he ignores that. Night vision should make sense, -4 to your penalties for darkness. And weapon master. A lot of the weapon master with hammers has already been calculated. The only other thing to mention, Steve, is that, and this is true for all you guys can do, in addition to choosing your action, you can do what's called a rapid strike. Okay, a rapid strike is 2 quick attacks that take a -6 per round for each attack, unless you have a weapon master. So your weapon master, Steve, that is halved. You can choose to make 1 attack at 17 or 2 attacks at 14 each.
Excellent.
Okay. Here's the disadvantages. You are a drunk. You've got addiction to alcohol. You've got a bad temper. When things get you agitated, you tend to code of honor, you heard me talk about. Enemy, you heard me talk about. Overconfidence.
What?
You don't really think there's you're like, no, we can take them. Absolutely. So
Right.
you have to make a self-control roll to avoid overestimating your abilities and the abilities of your colleagues.
Oh, yeah.
And then stubbornness. And actually, you and Saramar share this. You guys are both hard-headed. You're both. It sometimes takes some cajoling. If you think X and everyone else is like, no, it's Y, you take some convincing to get done that way. So you and Saramar sometimes butt heads on that. Your skills otherwise should all make sense. Okay, so one last thing I'll mention, guys, and this is for everybody, is this is how the game works, right? You know the order that we're going to know what order everyone is acting in each round. I've got my nice GM's control sheet with all your special abilities and your disadvantages and stuff. Here's the way. Here's 2 ways that you guys can also affect things. This is where the action point type stuff comes in. For one, each of you has a point of luck. So once per hour, you can use your luck to re-roll, and when you re-roll, you roll twice and take the highest of all 3 rolls.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So the other thing is that's once per hour. So if, say, right now, Jeff, you choose to use your luck, I'm going to write down Saramar, 824. When 924 rolls around, you get luck again.
Right.
Okay, so you got that as sort of your one way you can kind of control or mitigate the dice as they fall. The other thing.
So as long as we're good at stalling, we should always have the luck when we need it.
Yes, that's one way of looking at it. So that the DM will punish you other ways. The other thing is you can do what's called extra effort. This is sort of like drawing on your reserves and doing really putting in that extra effort, I guess. What this is spending fatigue points. Now, remember that when you hit 1/3 of your fatigue points, you start suffering penalties. You half move, half dodge, things like that, or half dex skills. Same thing with half hit points, actually. You don't die when you hit 0 hit points, incidentally. You don't officially die until you hit -5, but you start making health checks as you're getting down. What you can do with your extra effort, guys, is things like feverish defense. You can add +2 to your defense roll. You can have the penalties from rapid strike. If you want to take advantage of that, I want to hit twice in a round and take -3 instead of -6, you can do that. You can spend points to gain a second wind on a 1-for-1 basis to get your hit points back. If you've taken 6 points of damage, you can spend the 6 fatigue points to get them back. Your fatigue points don't get back until the standard 1 per 10 minutes of resting. So it's a bit of a trade-off, but that's what you can do. You can also spend 1 fatigue point to shake off an unconscious or knockdown effect. You can, Steve, spend a fatigue point when you know your maul, how you can't parry in the same round. You can spend a fatigue point to do that.
Okay.
You can strike a mighty blow. You can do +2 damage by spending 1 fatigue point. You can charge. You can spend 1 fatigue point and do a move and attack and suffer no penalties. And what else can you do? You can... Oh, multitask. If you're doing something, like you're trying to pick a lock, and you want to do a combat action as well, spend a fatigue point, you get to multitask. So, and Dave, this is particularly appropriate for you. You can spend 1 fatigue point to rapid reload. If for whatever reason you don't want to risk making your bow checks to try and reload quickly, you can spend a fatigue point, you're reloaded again. So, and if you choose to try other things with your fatigue points, I'm open to entertaining what you're suggesting. So, our scene opens. First off, do you have any questions about your characters? Or do you sort of have a starting point to see how they play?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Now, to be clear too, if you had built these characters yourself, you would build whatever you want. GURPS is you have a certain amount of points, you have certain conventions that are set for the game you're playing. So, for instance, you couldn't make the Human Torch in this for a number of reasons. You don't have enough points to build that kind of character, and also it just doesn't fit thematically. But you can really customize your character to both the setting and I feel that GURPS makes a more well-rounded type of character because you're thinking about every aspect of that character, their personality, their backgrounds, their weaknesses, their crutches, and their advantages. And you can build custom things like Brent's fog cloud ability is something that's custom built for him.
Shouldn't we start by rolling our enemies?
Yes, please do. Actually, why don't we go ahead? Jeff, I'll go by the order that you guys got on. So, Saramar, roll to see if we're going to see the Order of the Emerald Claw tonight.
So I roll 3d6?
Yep, and on a 9 or less, they're there.
Okay. I have rolled a 4.
Yep, so we got Order of the Emerald Claw.
Oh, what a waste of an awesome roll.
Okay, next on was Brent. Rurik, why don't you roll for Order of the Emerald Claw? Oh, House Lyrindar, sorry.
6.
House Lyrindar, too.
Nice.
Nice. Then, Dave, you want to roll for Kettle? Hey, does he have an enemy? Kettle has no enemies. He's just so likable.
Yeah, cool.
But Ruggs, I believe you've got, Order of the Emerald Claw. Why don't you roll again, Steve-O?
Is it a D6?
3d6.
3D6.
Task resolution, always 3d6.
Got it. Well, yeah, that's a 4.
So there's some serious problems with the Order of the Emerald Claw tonight.
Oh my God, we both rolled a 4?
Yep. Okay, so our scene opens in a small village. Sorry, I should say a small town. The population of the town is probably about maybe 6,000, 7,000 people. And it's nighttime, but it's noisy. Now it's noisy because so the town of Misthaven is a border town. that is near the kingdom of Breland and the sort of kingdom of Dargoon, the kingdom that was forged by the hobgoblins and other goblinoids following the end of the last war, where they declared that this land, which once was Breland, is now ours. You're also close to the mist-filled borders of the Mournlands, what once was your home, Seer. This town, the town of Misthaven, is full of misfits, refugees, mercenaries, treasure hunters, and other ne'er-do-wells, smugglers, and just broken souls, souls who couldn't find other parts of the world to live in once the war came to an end. The three, so in the streets of this town, walking towards a tavern called the Raven's Loft, we see 4 figures. 3 human-sized figures wrapped in cloaks, and a fourth, stockier figure stomping along, really making very little effort to hide the heavy plate armor that he has his entire body encased in. The 4 figures stop for a moment. They look at the sign of the it's a raven in profile sitting in the eaves of a building. You look at each other, and Saramar, you say, "This is the place." Now, what this place is, you guys are, as I said, you guys have been sort of mercenaries, or you spent time as mercenaries after the, immediately after the morning. You guys sort of went your different ways. Saramar, you and Kettle went and kind of lived in the middle of nowhere. You really had no purpose, so you threw yourself into research and writing, and tried to sort of rediscover that as your as what you wanted to do. Ruggin, you lost yourself in a bottle for quite some time afterwards. And Rurik, what did you do?
I think I would have. When did he inherit the ship?
Not until 3 years after the day of mourning.
Well, probably he would have kept on working as a mercenary. He alienated himself from his family and lost his country.
And it's not even so much that he did alienate himself too, but I'm going to suggest that what you actually tried to do too is put as many, like, your mercenary groups were always, I'm going to make Sirens. That's what it'll be. It'll be Sirens who I'll put together. And, some people did not weather the loss of their homeland as well as you guys did, and that's combined with the already traumatic effect of fighting the last war. In addition to the the Warforged, I should mention there is one of the border kingdoms that Seer fought some vicious battles with is a place called Karnath. Karnath did not have the resources or really the population or the standing armies that the other 4 nations had during it, so they turned to necromancy to assist them in bolstering their numbers. So you guys would have fought for your entire lives against just unholy abominations, and sometimes against former allies whose bodies had been scavenged from the battlefield and raised by Karnathi necromancers to be sent back against you. But you palace. So as So Brent, you does that sound okay? You were trying to kind of put this group together with other Sirens, and it just never really worked out. What happened is all of you guys were kind of brought back to this massive city, the largest city in Breland, called Sharn. Sharn is known as the City of Towers, which is these. And the reason is because it has an affinity for air magic, which facilitates the creation of these massively tall spires. Like 300, 400-foot tall spires, and you see soaring air taxis going back and forth, and griffin mounts going back and forth, and magic carpets flying between. You guys came there, and that's where you found 2 things: you found your old supply master, your sergeant at arms, or not sergeant at arms, the master at arms, who told Rurik about this ship that he had inherited. and proposed that you guys put together this this mercenary outfit. Now, in the last couple of months, you've been following a series of leads, Saramar, which have led you to what you've heard is that you think that there, I mean, there's 1,000 theories out there as to who's behind the mourning, but you think you may have a lead that would prove that it was the Carnathi who were behind it. It was Coulson that cast this catastrophically devastating spell that changed the world and eliminated your nation. Now, it's not to say like, oh, talk to so-and-so and do that, but what you've heard is that there is a man named Dieter Kessler who was apparently involved in some kind of necromantic research back during the last war. And you've heard that Kessler can be found or contacted in Misthaven. What you hear is he's kind of like a alchemist / necromancer for hire, and that's what he's been doing since this time. You've heard, or what you've been told, is to speak to a guy named Uthar, who is supposed to be a owner or a bartender at the Raven's Loft, and that he would lead you. He'll tell you where to find Dieter. Well, your hope is that Dieter will point you towards a name or a place to find someone that you've known as Count Venir Eromic. And Count Eromic is legendary as a horrifically brilliant designer of necromantic weapons. He went missing, which is rumored to be, or at least the spies of all the countries have said that sort of an experiment went wrong about 40 years ago. But what you've heard is that you know from fighting the Karns that death is never the end of them, and you've heard that past his death he continued his research, but and he may know, if not his research, but who carried on his research. So you want to find his old lab, because you believe that if you recover what you've heard, if you can recover his corpse, his cadaver, even just his brain, that magics could be worked to try and figure out, try and determine if there is any proof that would attach Karn to what happened to Seer. So, backing up, what you're there for, you're looking outside, you hear there's a guy named Uthar who's inside the Raven's Loft who can point you in the direction to find Dieter Kessler. So, what are you guys going to do? There's noise spilling out from within, there's a bunch of gambling and so forth going on inside. It's everything you expect from a raucous kind of tavern where the clientele turns over every night or so.
Okay, are we expecting to need to intimidate information out of this guy, or like pay him, or what? Do we have some inkling of what kind of
It is. You tell me. How would you typically approach this kind of thing?
I'm thinking, because of the nature of what we're investigating, that I would assume that we're going to need to intimidate or, pressure the information out of them.
Okay.
I assume we're not wealthy.
You're not super rich, no. You live a fairly comfortable living thanks to your writing. Each of you guys, Ruggin and Rurik, you draw your income from mercenary work. And then Kettle, yours is, I'm guessing, kind of like a wilderness guide type work, typically. So, yeah.
So what do we know? What do we know about the welfare of this Uthar character?
You mean like how wealthy he is, or?
Yeah, like, do we know anything about him?
No.
Just that he's going to be here.
Yeah, you can kind of picture, again, like the setting is very, pulp, like noir kind of Raiders of the Lost Ark pulp type stuff, where you've got a name. You heard a name through one shadowy contact that said, Uther, speak to Uther, he'll get you in contact. And it's been months of research that you've been doing, of talking to people in different places and traveling around on your ship to different cities where you've heard this name, Count Eromic, Count Eromic, Count Eromic. And then you hear that this Dieter Kessler was apparently an apprentice to Count Eromic back in the day. So Kessler may be able to tell you where his lab is. If you can finally find his lab, then if you can't find his corpse there, you may be able to find some information as to where the hell he's buried.
Right. Okay. Then I'm suggesting that we go into this bar or pub or whatever it is,
Okay.
and try and observe the people there, and see if we can pick out who this Uthar character is and observe him a little bit to discern the best tactic for approaching him.
Sure. Okay. Guys, you agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Sounds good.
So you guys walk in. You throw the door open, and no one pays you any mind. As soon as the door opens, you can see that this place, which is probably about it's about maybe 40 feet wide. The central door is sort of right in the middle, by about maybe 50 feet deep, and then it sort of goes up to. There are stairs to lead upstairs. On the one side, there is entry to sort of the back area, or like the kitchen, the storehouse, and so forth on the left. And there's the bar that runs the length of it, and this place is packed. There's maybe, you could sort of horn your way in into one of the side tables or something like that, or saddle up to the bar. What do you guys want to do? The crowd, incidentally, is a mix of diverse races. There are humans in here from, as far away as they've got the swarthy look of the Kabarans. They've got Brelanders here. There are people from who clearly have orcish features from the Eldine Reaches. There are hobgoblins who are clearly mercenaries passing through, all sitting around one table, still wearing all their armor. There are caravan guards. There are scholars who look timid and what do you call it? A little fearful for their safety. It's a very eclectic crowd and a very well lubricated crowd. Behind the bar, you see that there is a sort of a stocky guy with brown hair, thinning and a little further back, so that it's faded back to around here. And he's got a thick kind of mane around, a thick mane that sort of grows down. He's got the smock on. He's got the scars to suggest that this is someone who used to, like many people, used to fight during the last war. And he sort of is barking orders at a group of young women and young men who are the serving staff, kind of going around. You are guessing that from the description of the owner of the Raven's Loft that this is Uthar. He looks like a Breelander as well.
Oh, okay. He's the owner of the establishment.
You think so, yeah.
Okay. Well, let's go order a drink.
Sounds good. Grab a table and...
Okay. Who is going to order a drink?
I am.
You
I'll
are.
order one as well.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, okay, Steve. Steve, here's the thing with Ruggin is
All right.
I need you to make and you guys are all aware of this. So, if you choose to do something a little different here, Ruggin is an alcoholic. Like, this is not like a ha ha ha, ta. He's like, no, fuck off, I'm drinking. I don't care if we got a fucking mission. So, Steve, what I need you to do, one other use for extra effort. You can choose to spend on a 1-for-1 basis, to gain, 1-for-2 basis to gain a bonus to your skill for a roll. Okay, so, Ruggin, I need you to make a will check for me, please. Or you're going to go into your cups and not come out for a while.
We had 6 plus 5 is 11.
Ooh! You guys know that look in, you're like, maybe we'll get we're going to order a drink, and Ruggin just stomps right past you, skips up, and he's like, 4 beers right away!
Yeah.
Okay, and let's see here. So how does this do to you, Steve-O? 12. Oh, actually, Steve, here. I'm going to make you guys make the reaction. Go ahead and make a roll 3d6, Steve, and let me know what you roll.
Yeah, that is nice. That is a 13.
13, okay. You go up and slam down. You say that you want, your 4 beers, and Uther looks over at you and says, says that's the right spirit. Martha, get him 4 beers right now. Hurry up! So he goes over and gets that. So you guys, this is something you have seen, no doubt, many times before. This is the start of the next 2 hours or so of Ruggan's night. So, yeah. What are the 3 of you guys doing?
I will order a single beer and sort of eye the bartender here, and then wait for it to get less busy before approaching him to request information.
You know, Brent, you know from your soldiers, like, if you're going to wait for it's less busy, then you got to wait till like they shut things down. This is a caravanier's tavern for people who are passing. These are guys who just got to town, just got paid, and maybe are waiting for their next job. Like, this is the kind of place that sort of goes until like, early the next day.
All right.
Yeah, what you can try and do is, like, if what you mean is you're going to try and like wait for a lull and try and get his attention.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay, Brent, are you displaying, like, where is your dragon mark?
On my neck.
On your neck. Do you have it hidden or concealed here, or have you got it out for all to see?
My armor. If I'm wearing armor, it would be concealed. If I'm not wearing armor, then it would be visible.
Okay. The reason I ask is because that will determine that, like, you get a +2 reaction bonus to for when people know that you're from House Lyrandar, or that you are dragon marked. If they can't see it, you would have to either tell them or introduce yourself or whatever to gain that bonus.
Okay, and it's a least dragon mark, kind of, I'm assuming?
It's, again, this is, try not to think of it in terms of, that's a mechanical distinction.
Yeah, but they change in their shape and style as they get more potent.
No, then, you know what, you can tell me what it is.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. Like, right now you get a +2. So that's, like, if you built this character, right, and you wanted to have it, like, it's not really, like, I don't know.
Well, I ran up. I grabbed the Dragon Mark book from upstairs. So I looked at the pictures of the least,
okay, cool,
lesser, and the greater, and
it can be whatever you like for it. Really, I mean, it doesn't really matter. Mechanically, it gives you a pretty decent bonus to your reactions. All.
Okay, yeah, no, I was just using for the picture and size based off of the existing one.
Sure.
So yeah, I guess I'm picturing sort of like the least mark on his neck.
Okay, so would Uther see this or not?
I think he would see it, and I don't foresee my character wearing like full plate or full scale into the bar. I can see him bringing his sword, but I don't see him like.
You know what? In this town, it wouldn't be unusual.
Okay.
Like I said, there's a table full of hobgoblins in full armor sitting in one place. Like, you going in, sword drawn, shield, wielded, that would be, a little weird. But you carrying all this gear in, there's tons of guys in this bar who are, like, they've got everything they own on their back, sitting at their feet. Okay.
Well, I'm not wearing a helm, so it's probably visible, like, because the breastplate wouldn't come high enough to cover it.
Okay. Okay. So,
not completely.
Roll a reaction for me, please. Roll 3d6 and add 2 to it.
Don't I want to subtract?
Nope, you want to add. This is the only time where higher is better. Think of it like this, Brent. The way I was describing it is your reaction roll is kind of like your social damage.
Oh, okay. 15.
Nice. Okay, so you walk up, and Uther sees you sit down, and he sort of, you can see him eyeing your neck, and he says, "Sir, not often we have your type in here. Shall I be grabbing something from the top of the bar?"
Why, thanks. I would love an ale.
Ale is fine. You won't drink the same swill these lot are doing. Got something special for you. Something in from the Roar holds. Dwarven ale, a stout. Does that tickle your fancy?
It does indeed.
Allow me to get that for you. He goes down and starts pouring it up for you. You'll note that he's doing that for you. He's not getting the girls to do it for you. Ruggan, you're on beer number 2 right now.
I'll introduce myself.
3.
Okay, Brett, just give a second here. Saramar and Kendall, what are you guys doing?
I I go over to Ruggin and I put a hand on his shoulder, and I just say, I look down at him and I say, Ruggin, we're working, and I give him a stern look.
Okay. Now this is awesome because you guys are both stubborn.
I said, "You're right. This is hard work." And then I down my third beer.
Nice.
I grab his fourth beer and I pour it down.
Okay, Steve. Ruggin's got a bad temper.
Mm-hmm.
So, what? Okay, here's the thing. Normally, that would not require a bad temper roll, but because you're an alcoholic, it essentially. Okay, so can you first off, Steve, roll 2d6 for me?
7.
7. Okay, so basically, the next 7 hours of Ruggin's life, he's got in mind of just getting as shit-faced as he can.
Okay.
Now, normally, I wouldn't make you make a bad temper roll, but in this case, because you're, like, this is, you know, he drank an alcoholic's beer. So, I'd like you to make a self-control roll, please, for your bad temper, 12 or less.
12 or less, is that 2 dice? Oh, sorry, 3 dice.
3 dice. Always 3 dice.
Always 3 dice. Kablam, and I rolled a 10.
10. So you're not losing your temper, but what do you do?
I turn to him and I say, "Look, you can use your head, and I'll use my tools when you need me. But this is a job for chumps, and I'm going to get drunk. Now give me my beer."
Kettle, what are you doing during this time?
Kettle's gonna go up to Uther and say to him, "I bet you I can drink him under the table," and order 4 beer.
Okay. Can you please roll 3d6?
7.
7. Ooh, okay. 7 minus 2 because of your social stigma. You go up and what do you call it? Kind of throw it back, and you say that. Uther kind of like looks up, and you can see like it's like someone dumped something on him. The face goes from pleasure at having a dragon mark. What do you call it? A dragon mark character in the thing to you is going from sort of like pleasure and joy to fury. He stands up and stalks up to you, and he says, "Your kind is not welcome here. Get out of my establishment!" What do you do?
Sorry, Tin Man.
Now, okay, so guys, remember that once the reaction is established, that doesn't mean it's set there. You can try and use role-playing and your social skills to try and change that. That becomes a starting point for where that NPC is reacting to you. So, Uther fucking hates you. He's also the type that is. This is not the first time you've heard that kind of reaction, incidentally, Kettle. What do you guys all do right now? Saramar and Ruggin are sort of arguing over the consumption of beer. Rurik, Uther's been distracted by the appearance of this Warforged. And there's a bit of a hush that's happened in this part of the pub as well. What do you guys do?
You know, I'm gonna say to Uther, I'm just here to give you money. And if you hate money, you hate freedom.
Okay. I'm going to get you to, let's see here. Why don't you roll 3d6 for me? I'm making you make an untrained skill check for fast talk.
10.
Okay. So what you just said, but in the most sarcastic way possible. And the reason is, Dave, is because you're not really trained in any social skills, so your starting point is probably around a 10, and then anything that judges understanding of emotions because of your low empathy is -3.
Okay.
So like you're just like you're like, I've seen the other guys be sarcastic. I'll try and do this too. It looks, guys, like he actually might physically go across the table and try and remove Kettle. What do you guys want to do?
I look down at Ruggin and I say, "Oh shit."
Okay, I'm gonna ask you actually because we need this guy. I'm gonna ask you to. I'm gonna ask Kettle to stand outside. Just because I just need that information.
But I can drink too. As a matter of fact, and I'll say to Uther, I bet you I can drink you under the table as well.
You guys can see that Uther is starting to reach for something underneath the table.
I'm shaking my head at Kettle, and I'll say, "Wait outside, Tin Man."
All right, but you better bring me a beer. So yeah, Kettle will kind of stalk off out of the tavern and patiently wait.
I look at Ruggin and I tell him to order some more beers and go have some outside with Kettle.
You insist. No. Cat's face is frozen.
Uh-oh. Kevin died.
I think so. Well, you know what? I'm going to use this opportunity to grab myself an alcoholic beverage instead of just
Excellent.
talking about alcoholic beverages.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of lemon Coke. Yeah, sure. Sounds good. Yeah, give me this. You want a lemon Coke? Last time I was watching Digimon, I smashed a water.
Like punch you in the balls, freak out, or like?
She screamed and like making crap. She's making all the food for Sunday.
Oh no way.
So we go for the crap.
You have any Sailor Jerry?
There's a chance we'll have to hang up this call, and Kevin will have to call us back.
Unacceptable, Jeff.
Yeah, in fact, I can see that he's trying to call us. So hang up this call and answer the new one.
I don't think I want to do that.
Ah, fine. I'm hanging up the call.